Stable.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining the monthly webinar series that Formax like to host. This is the second session of the day, and I know we have a long weekend coming up, so I appreciate you guys taking the time. Today, we'll be going over the Cut True Guillotine Cutter lineup. I'll be going over the Cut True 23S and the changes from the 22S to the 23S. I'll be going over a sneak peek of the Cut True 28A, and I'll also be going over the Cut True 29A and some changes we made there. Right off the bat, I just want to say a couple of things about the Formax cutter specifically. There is a few things that we like to focus on in our manufacturing, what we design for our cutters, and that's going to be safety, durability, and then competitive pricing. We believe we follow all three of these for our cutters, and it's a kind of a huge staple for our entire guillotine cutter lineup. Now, when someone is looking to buy a cutter, there are a couple things that they are looking for. They're looking for good price, they're looking for clamp style, and they're looking into their application and environment. Those are kind of four really important things whenever you're talking to a customer or anyone who's looking to buy a cutter. So if any of those come up and if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to an account executive at Formax and we'll be sure to help you out. Starting off with the Cut True 23S. This was the updated model. We just replaced this with the 22S. So there were a few changes that went in with that. And one of those was being the stand here at the bottom. On the Cut True 22S, that used to be an 8-piece stand, so that used to be a little bit more cumbersome to build, a little bit harder to get ready and situated with this cutter. So now it's a 4-piece build, so even for those servicing dealers and those customers, it's that much easier just to get yourself situated and ready to cut. Moving up on the machine here, you're going to have two handles on each side of the cutting head. That's easy for lifting that cutter onto the stand or using it as a tabletop unit. It is important to note that unlike our competitors, this stand does come included whether you want to use it or not. It is something that's included at no additional cost. So some of your competitors out there may have that as an additional cost add-on. So that's where we have the plexiglass cover. This kind of has dual purposing. And for the 22S, it actually used to hang out a little bit, about an inch or so over the front of that cutter, where that manual back gauge would sometimes get in the way and it would rub up against it sometimes. So we felt for a better look and feel, we would make that flush against the side. And that's kind of why we went with the whole kind of new look for the 23S, because it's more something that Formax is proud of. We want our dealers to be proud of it. And that's what this whole new feel should do. It should make you proud to sell that Formax cutter. So just moving up here, we have the safety feature of the plexiglass cover. When that plexiglass cover is lifted, you will not be able to use this machine. This cutting action will not be able to use. So if your hands are in there moving that paper around, you are completely safe. But once that plexiglass cover is down, it's good to go. You're ready to go. Moving forward to the face here, the second key safety feature is going to be that 2-button operation. So when I get in front of the machine here and I use this to cut, my hand's completely away from the blade. Everything will be safe. Everything's away from the blade. Moving forward, you have your key for operation. That's going to be good for if you have any kids, anybody you don't really trust using a cutter. You can take that key out and this entire cutter is operational. Moving down here, we have the on button, which I'm actually going to turn on right now. And you'll see that the cutter actually says hone here. On the 22S, you used to have to manually bring that back gauge all the way to the back of the machine so that it can calibrate and kind of reset at 0. But what we thought was easier for dealers and customers is that you can bring that to the front instead. So once you bring that to the front, it's that much easier just to have that readout, because a lot of the time your media isn't going to be that much larger where you're going to need to bring it all the way back. So speaking about this LED display, this shows you exactly what measurement you're at when you're cutting. So let's say if I wanted to make a cut here, I would put my paper in and I'd actually adjust this clamp or this manual back gauge, and let's say I wanted to go to 12 inches. You see that it's reading 12 right there. Once you pull this manual back gauge out, you can spin this and move this at any point, and that's not going to move anywhere. That cut is stagnant. So one of the most important parts of this machine that I mentioned earlier is going to be that manual clamp. The clamp for all cutters is extremely important. But for the 23S in particular, this is a manually spindle guided clamp. So what that does is it gives you a lot more incremental pressure. So each turn is going to give you that much more manual clamp pressure. So I'm going to lift the clamp here and get my paper situated under there. I'm going to move this paper back to the back gauge. And you know what? I want to move it back a little too. So we're going to get to 15 here. Nice and good. Shut the plexiglass cover. And you can see as I keep pushing this spindle guided clamp, you can slowly turn it more and more. And that's just giving you more increments of pressure that you're able to use. I was talking to my colleague today, and he was talking about how a lot of churches or people using booklets, it's huge for this type of machine because you can apply as much pressure as you want for this cutter. So I'm just going to make a cut here. Pull that out. I'm actually going to loosen the clamp and then just pull this up actually a little bit more and do another 2-inch cut, or 5 inches, should I say. Pull that out, LED display, and then I can make my second cut. Now in the name, this is the Cut True 23S, which means it's a semi-automatic cutter. That's going to be an automatic blade with a manual back gauge and a manual clamp. That's different. We have 3 other options of cutters here at Formax. We have the manual cutters, the 16M for example. We have the 28A and the 29A automatic cutters, and then we also offer some hydraulic cutters for you. So next I'll be moving on to the Cut True 28A, which is a fully automatic cutter. So that's going to mean you have an automatic blade, clamp, and back gauge. So that's really important because let's say for the 27S, for example, semi-automatic cutter, where the only thing manual is going to be the back gauge, but everything else will be automatic. So just going through a little bit about this machine here. This machine is about 2 to 3 months out. It is a hole in the market machine that we feel is going to fit really well in. It's sub 13,000 MSRP. So it's going to fit in great once it comes out. I'm still learning this machine, but it's really great. So just going forward, I'll touch on that 3 key safety features that I mentioned at the beginning. You have your key for operation where you can remove and take out if anyone was using it. You have your 2-button operation where if I get in front, your hands away from the blade and everything like that. And I'm actually going to just turn this machine on here. And it's going to load up. And once you touch the screen here, it's actually going to automatically calibrate, bringing that back gauge all the way to the back. And that's really important because I mentioned on the 22S, you used to have to manually bring that all the way to the back. But now, on the 23S, you just have to bring it to the front, where, could you imagine doing that all the way to the back like before? So for the 28A, it's automatic and it's much easier operation. And then, going back to the safety features, I know I'm jumping around a little. You have these safety curtains. So Travis, if you switch the camera to the safety curtain camera, you'll notice that if I put my hands anywhere past that safety curtain, it's going to shine red, and that's going to actually pause the machine at its entirety. So if you have the blade down, if you have the clamp down, if you're in the middle of anything, once you break that safety curtain, this machine will pause at its entirety. So moving just through the face of the machine, it has a cleaner look just like the 23S, something we're more proud of, something that we want to show that we have quality products too that meet the industry standards. So you have your back gauge, adjustable back gauge here where you can move and adjust it. But the good thing about this machine here is you can just type in wherever you want to cut and that back gauge will go wherever you want it to. So I have this ream of paper, 8.5 by 14, and I'm just going to cut it in half. I'm going to go to 7 inches, and it's going to bring that back gauge all the way up. So I'm going to put this back here, push it right up against that edge, and then I'm going to just make a cut. Cut it right in half. And it actually just did one of my favorite options of this machine, and I'm going to go through the screen here now. So you have your eject here, then your calibrate button in the middle, and what I have this machine currently set on is cut and eject. So once I do make a cut, it's just going to push that media forward, make it easier for you to grab that media and then move. That's funny. Grab that media from the cutter without keeping your hands away from that cutter. Moving on here, we have the programmable list here. This can save up to 100 different jobs. So this is great for print shops, anybody outsourcing jobs where you need a lot of different things. Maybe you have a lot of different users using this machine who don't have the time to learn it at its entirety. You can just pick a saved job and that back gauge will just move according to that media. So there's no problems there or any issues there. Moving down, you have your settings here. This does have one of my favorite features because the knife change assembly, for example, it gives you step-by-step instructions and pictures on how to change that knife blade. And you can go step-by-step showing each different one. There's also pictures for, giving it more oil or doing anything like that. But this is more the settings of the machine where if you're a servicing dealer, then this is where all that nitty-gritty, all that stuff you'd want to know about, that's where that would all be on this machine. Now this cutter does have an 18.9 inch cutting width. So if it's in those print shops and you need something bigger than that, that's where the 29A comes into play. So moving on to the Cut True 29A, again, fully automatic cutter. This is the industry standard. We have, before it had a little bit smaller of a touchscreen, so what we decided to do was make it easier for those customers, for those people using this cutter, to have a bigger, easier to read screen that's much easier to use. So just going through some of the safety features that I've keyed in on throughout this whole presentation is you have your key, you have your emergency stop button, two-hand operation, so as I showed before, no hands can get in the way of that blade when using this, and then you have your safety curtain here, which will actually pop up on the screen when you break it. Just going through some of the screen here, we have absolute mode, which this gives you absolute control of the back gauge. That's how I like to understand it. And then moving down, you have incremental mode. Excuse me. This just means if you want to cut these pages in increments, say you need to cut 2 inches off a page, an entire page, this will cut and then move 2 inches down. Just like the 28A, it has an eject button where if you press that, it'll push the media up 3 inches and then set right back to where it originally was. Moving forward here, we have our programs. Just like the 28A, it can have 100 saved jobs. This one is actually pretty cool because this is the same job our marketing department likes to use for the catalogs that we send out to dealers and we use today. So I'll be showing you that once I finish up wrapping up this machine specifically, but it's a really cool part. So going through the card cutting here, if you have a job where you're doing semi-regular business cards or you're outsourcing something like this, then this would be a perfect job. If you are doing constant business cards and you're regularly doing it on a regular basis, your Formax account executive might suggest a business card cutter, one of our flash cards for example. But if this is a job you're outsourcing a little bit, then this would be perfect because you can set the start, the stripe, and the gap, and that machine will just move that back gauge according to your media. It can do everything you want. And let's say you are in absolute mode and you move that to where you want. Right now it's at about 7.5 inches. But if you want to make micro adjustments here, I did forget to mention this has a micro adjuster on the front where you can move the back gauge actually up to 1/100th of an inch, which is really important for you getting specific and as close as you can for your media. Now going back up to the screen here, jumping around a little bit, you have your options here. This is kind of the nitty-gritty just like the 28A. This is the settings. This is for all those servicing dealers out there who want to know more about the machine. You can change the language, you can go through the knife change, you can go through the calibration and everything like that. This is really where all those information would be for those servicing dealers or for customers if they are interested. So actually, I am going to just start this catalog job right here. So I am on step 1, so I'm going to move in front of the machine here and just hit program start. So now that's moving that right to where it needs to be. I'm going to use the wooden push. This comes standard with all of our cutters, and this really just gives you an easy way to move your media around without having to put your hand in danger of the blade. So once I have that set, I'm going to get the first cut going. And as you saw, it jumped right up to job 2 and is moving the back gauge currently. I'm going to turn my media here. Get my wooden push. Make my second cut. Ejects the 3 inches. And then sets up that last cut for you. Just like that, those catalogs are ready to go and be mailed out. If you do want any handheld catalogs, you can ask any of your Formax account executives and we'll be sure to mail those out to you. Just a little bit more about the Cut-Tru 29A. This is a 220 volt power machine. It's really important to know that. Unlike the 28A, which is a 110 volt machine, that's the difference. That's one of the main differences between these two. So they do overlap a little bit of the markets. They both can be in print shop. They can both be in real estate agencies. But that power differentiator is huge for these cutters. For the 29A, this does fit in a standard doorway and it does come as is, unlike the 28A where you have to build that stand. This is exactly how the Cut-Tru 29A comes. With that 20-inch cutting width, it's that much better for those print shops. So if you have to do a lot, high environment, bigger applications, that's what that 29A is going to be used for. This is rated for 2 shifts of operation. And I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that we do offer hydraulic cutters. We do actually offer the 29H, which is the hydraulic version of this cutter. And now, the really important thing to know about hydraulics is that when we say fully hydraulic cutters, we mean fully hydraulic blade and clamp. And sometimes competitors out there will say a hydraulic cutter, and they just mean hydraulic blade. When we say hydraulic blade and clamp, that's really important, because having a hydraulic clamp for that small increments of pressure is extremely important. It's almost as important as that hydraulic blade. Going back to the Cut True 23S here. You know, the Cut True 23S is a sub $5,000 cutter in its market. It's about $1,500 to $2,000 less than any of its competitors. The Cut True 23S is really great for any school, church, for any universities. I mentioned at the beginning, anything with kids or anything where you want to keep it safe, you can just take that key out, and now that cutter's great. It's good to go. You know, moving on to the Cut True 28A, as I mentioned before, sub $13,000 cutter. This is a hole in the market cutter, so we don't really think there is a competitor out there for this. For a 110 volt cutter with 18.9 inch cutting width, you're not really going to see anything out there for a better price. So this cutter is great, just like the 29A. It's good for those print shops, maybe marketing agencies, real estate agencies. I was talking to a coworker today, and they said culinary schools. It's great for those. So this Cut True 28A is actually it's going to be a great product once it comes out. And if you want to know any more about it, please feel free to reach out to any of your Formax account executives, and we'll get you all the information you need to know. Now, I believe I covered everything I wanted to do, but I am going to run back over to that Cut True 29A just to speak about the screen one last time. We do put a lot of value in the screen here. This screen, when it went through the upgrades, we wanted it to compete against the competitors. So if you have any of the competitors, maybe the 5260, if you compare those screens, this is going to be head and shoulders above anything that's out there. It has the full color, it has everything you need to do, and it's just that much easier to use this type of cutter. Now, I believe that's everything I have, so I'm going to reset at the beginning, and then I'm ready for questions if you have any, Travis.
Sure. The first one was a question. I know you talked about the stand for the 23S.
Yeah.
The question from the chat just was, does the 28A come on its stand, or does it have to be assembled?
Yeah, so for the Cut True 28A, you have to build that stand prior. So once you build that stand, it's in 4 pieces, just like that 23S. So not too hard to build, and then you just lift that cutting head right onto its stand.
That's terrific. Next one was, you mentioned 20-inch width on the 29A. Is there a larger cutter that we offer?
Yes, so the largest cutter that we offer is going to be the 31H. That's going to be a 28-inch cutting width. And like I mentioned earlier, that hydraulic cutting and clamp is really important. So if you want any more information about some hydraulic cutters, or you have any customers out there that are interested, please reach out to your Formax account executive, and we'll get you all the information you need.
Next one was for the Cut True 28A. Just confirm, is that 110 power?
Correct. That is 110 volt power. So that's really important. If you don't have the means to get 220 volt power, or you don't have the price for the 29A, or maybe the 27S isn't fully automatic, that's where that 28A comes in, because it's 110 volt, fully automatic, and everything you need under that $13,000 MSRP.
And the last one is just consumables for the Cut True lineup?
Yeah. So all of the cutters, Universal, have the same consumables. They have replacement blades and replacement cutting sticks. So we do like to sometimes recommend getting a replacement blade with the cutter, because if you have maybe your blade dulls after a lot of cuts, then you have that second one when you need to sharpen the first one. And the second consumable is going to be the cutting sticks. So if you notice your cuts start to shift or move towards the end, you might just want to turn that cutting stick. You can turn it up to the 4 sides it has, and that really does protect a lot of the media and give you a straighter cut a lot of the time.
Looks like that's all we got.
Well, thank you everyone for joining today. I know I was moving fast, so if you guys have any questions or if you missed anything, please reach out to your Formax account executives. I appreciate you guys joining us for this month's webinar, and tune in next month. Thank you guys.